You're still watching this edition of Business Today from the nation's capital here in Windhoek, and informal economic activities play a major role in enhancing national economies in many African countries. But these are informal activities. Are they recognized, and what is the government doing to meet them halfway? Now, to discuss this, I'm joined here in the studio by local businessman, Mr. Martin Shipanga, who is an established entrepreneur, and he now discusses this concept with me tonight. Good evening, sir, and thank you for agreeing to talk to us here on Business Today.
Well, thank you very much, and thanks for having me here.
I have referred to you as an entrepreneur. How would you define one, and what classifies or qualifies you as such?
Well, I think the concept of an entrepreneur is very wide, but it speaks to the very basic strata of our society. If I look at my personal background, I'm from a family of 7. And my parents, my father was just an ordinary cattle header before he moved to Windhoek. And my mother had basic education up to the then, I think, standard 6. So therefore, I think as a person that used to trade informally, that is where I learned my basic skills of entrepreneurship. Because she used to trade in Matangara, selling at the bus stop. And when we come from school, would basically join in distributing around the township. Now, that speaks to the very basic essence of entrepreneurship. So to me, it is the ability to be able to respond to a very basic need of society. And it also speaks to understanding the culture within that society in which you operate.
Now, through the selling of this Matangara, you would then know which route to take, which people to approach, who is likely to buy, who's not likely to buy. You would then get all that.
Well, I think it started very simple because my mother would be stationed at the bus stop. The reason being very simple, because when people knock off from work, they have to stop at the bus stop in order to disembark to go home. But she managed to work out some routes for us, which over time, you develop to understand that if I go to this house, they will buy. This house, they like to complain about the price. Yeah, so I think in essence, over a period of time, you begin to know who your real customers are and what they normally require. And then obviously advise when you get home that this is what they are saying. Maybe we're cutting it too small, make it a little bit bigger, or cut it in this shape or that shape in order to satisfy the needs of the clients.
Now, given the experience that you have gained and where you are now, what are the essential elements that would ensure that an entrepreneur succeeds?
Well, I think from where we sit, it is very important to recognize that to be an entrepreneur, it's an evolution. It is also very important to emphasize that we need to be able to recognize that we must start small and grow into, if one may call it, bigger entrepreneur. Because it's not possible to start big. And you need to start small, understand what you're doing, grow with it, and then hopefully over time begin to diversify.
Others talk about the need to have self-discipline. Others talk about following your dream, having the passion. Where do all this come in?
Well, I think at the end of the day, we need to look at the environment that is created by government, because that's really where it all starts. If I look at where we come from, the environment was not conducive at all. But if you look at what our government has done for us, it has created the space for us to enable us to release our potential. If I'm able to compare to the past, there were no markets that were dedicated for, let's say, informal traders where people could trade from. You would literally be chased all the time by the police, depending on where you were standing. So therefore, the environment is very, very important. And that environment is created by government. And it's also something that we must never take for granted, because more often we think it's automatic. It's not a God-given situation. We have seen what happens in different countries where governments have opted to create certain environments. But here I think we've been very fortunate in that our government has been able to understand us and also understand our needs and how we interact with one another at that level of business. And therefore I think that is where it starts. And then secondly also, is self-discipline, the ability to be able to appreciate and also respect people. Because at the end of the day, irrespective of the client, because you're dealing with ordinary people, if you look at our townships where we normally would be trading, and if one treats them with respect, they are able to open up to you, explain to you what exactly they want, how they want it. And if you have the ability to hear them and respond to that, then you will really be in business. And I think that is what we have been able to do over the last years.
It starts as an idea, you then actualize it, the business gets going. How do you sustain it?
Well, like just I've mentioned, what is very important is that you start very small. I mean, how many people, for example, will be prepared to take a basket of omatangara and go and sit at a bus stop where there is a lot of people? You will be subjected to laughing. I mean, other children will laugh at you and say, look at this one, he's forever sitting at the bus stop. So you need to have the resilience to be able to overcome that. Because if you have that, then only will you be able to cope with many challenges that a person is able to face in business. And I think that is one aspect that is able to distinguish various people or business entrepreneurs from one another.
How about the ability to make use available resources? And resources could be people with various skills. You might have the idea, but you will not be a lawyer in that business. You might not be the accountant of that business. The ability to harness these skills so that they benefit your business.
I think that ability is brought about by your ability to integrate with the society and also to be able to communicate with the various people that you are able to interact with in that particular environment. Be it as it may, I think at the end of the day, when you are able to listen to other people, respect them, understand the framework that is created, then I think you will be able to grow from one step to the other. You will start trading at a bus stop. The next thing, you may find yourself having to rent a space where to operate from. And then the next thing, before you realize, you operate from Independence Avenue. Because ultimately, that is where one would like to get to. But it is not so simple to just wanting to start from Independence Avenue and then operate in retrospect to areas that otherwise one would have actually started from in terms of growing and developing.
You made reference to that the informal trading activities sustain many families and they also contribute to the national economy. Their contribution to the national economy, is that well captured?
I would really say that to a very large extent, the informal economy is very much underestimated. Because the reason why I'm saying it's underestimated is because we don't see, especially from a societal point of view, many people that operate in that space are not really accorded the respect that they deserve. But if you look at the value that they add to the economy, is quite significant. Because business at that level does not really operate in credit, if you look at it. It's a cash business. And to that extent, you'll actually find that the majority of people that operate in those businesses, I would say, have the ability to go to the bank on a daily basis. And that is able to distinguish one from the other. How many business people have the ability to go to the bank on a daily basis? And I think that's very important from anybody that is serious from an entrepreneurial point of view. You've got the cash business, and then you also have got businesses that don't generate cash on an ongoing basis. So to find the balance, I think is key. But it starts at least with having some ability to have some cash, how little it may be.
You stress the ability to go to the bank and quite frequently doing that. Why is that significant?
Well, I think it is very important because saving, it's a very important component of growth. If you are not able to save, how do you expect to grow? Because to grow, you may need, for example, to buy more stock or to buy more equipment. How do you finance that? If, for example, you go to the bank, the first question they will ask you, what's your banking record? How often have you been banking? I think all the bank is trying really to do is to ascertain how often you are able to go to the bank and with how much money do you go to the bank, so that they can determine your ability to repay whatever loan or advance they may actually provide to you. Because that provides some level of comfort to the bank, if I may put it that way.
You earlier on made reference to the enabling environment that the government has created, and we have seen recently the promulgation of the Public Procurement Act, the Public-Private Partnership Act, the NEF bill that is in discussions. Are these instruments likely to create and sustain that conducive environment for informal traders specifically?
From where I sit, I really think that a lot more needs to be done to break down these policies and these laws into basic layman terms. Because how do you communicate to a basic layman or a basic ordinary person how they will benefit from the public-private partnership? Whilst the intention is good, this is where we really see our government playing a major role in educating and assisting us to understand where those opportunities are. And I think the policies are very correct. They speak the correct language, and all we really want there is the ability to interpret and take advantage of what those policies offer. But if you really look at them, they are definitely preparing the landscape, they are shaping the landscape, and they are also opening up opportunities for people that are aspiring to be in business.
We have seen many business people apparently or seemingly depending heavily on government work. Why is that risky long term?
Well, I think let's look at our economy. In Namibia, government is a major economic player, so which means that it's a major spender in the economy. But I think there's everything wrong for any entrepreneur to set up your business modeled on business with government only. I would really like to encourage a situation whereby we mirror our business models on sustaining our businesses with what we are able to offer to the private sector, and then use government as supplementary. So, which means that it must be a bonus if you are able to do business with government. But if your model is squarely based on doing business with government, then I think you run a risk of when government begin to reprioritize, then
when the policy changes.
Or policy changes, it may not speak to what you have identified as your major business focus. And therefore I think doing business with government is important, but I think it has to be harnessed against the background of first starting to speak to the private sector. To me, that way you are able then to create a sustainable business.
As we are drawing to a close of our discussion tonight, we also recently quoted in the local media as encouraging the introduction of laws that protects local businesses. Why is that necessary?
Well, I think let's start with confidence. You know, more often, especially Namibians, we don't appreciate even our own systems, our own governments, our own leaders. Business confidence is very crucial because that is what determines whether we are even able to attract foreign direct investments and so on. Now, to that extent, it becomes very prudent of us to have faith in our own government, in our own leaders, in our own systems. Then only we'll be able to focus also our energies in bringing about change. If you look at the current environment, it is really very, very much encouraging, because if you look at the signals that government is sending to the market, they are all the correct signals. Yes, people are complaining that maybe we have been going through an economic downturn. It happens to any business, like it would happen to a country. But then at least it should actually make us much more stronger so that we can emerge much more better and be able to contribute towards stimulating economic activity by focusing on those aspects that will drive and fast track our economy.
If somebody is listening to us now, watching us now, and has an idea, and is probably limited in one or the other areas, what would your word of motivation be?
Well, I think my word of motivation will be that we have a very beautiful country. We have a very good government. It has made good policies. What we need to do is to take hands, especially as Namibians, and do the little that we can do in our own environments and contribute towards national development. We cannot all just rely on, let's say, government tenders. There is a lot more that we can do out there. And let us start small. It's not possible to start big. Let's start small and be prepared to grow as time goes by.
Mr. Shipanga, let me thank you so much for your time joining us here on Business Today.
Thank you very much.